Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Bobcat Sports Report. My name is AJ Donatoni, and over the next 30 minutes, we're going to break it all down for you. Montana State's Big Sky opening victory over Eastern Washington, 30-7, the final score. The Cats' first win over the Eagles since 2002. We'll talk to head coach Rob Ash, defensive lineman Zach Minter, and Bobcat game day analyst Mike Callahan. They're going to help us break it all down for you. So stick around. We'll be right back after this on the Bobcat Sports Report. Welcome back to the Bobcat Sports Report. The Big Sky opener for the Cats against Eastern Washington. They haven't beat them since 2002. Early on, the Eagles took possession right away, and a long pass from Bo Levi Mitchell to Ryan Cito got things going, but the Eagles can't convert. A missed field goal keeps the game scoreless. Cats with the football now. Denarius McGee hooking up with Elvis Akpla doing a little juggling act, but he manages to hang on, and that would lead to this later in the drive. McGee on the pitch to Everett Gilbert out of the backfield. He walks it in, 7-0, Cats on top early. Later on in the first, Mitchell back to throw. He throws it right into the defensive line. Zach Minter's there, an interception. He would return it for a touchdown. Cats go up 13-0. There was a missed PAT on the play. Later on, McGee back in control for the Cats, going down the left sideline this time, but it's Elvis Akpla once again. Cats using that matchup to their advantage all day. But later on, McGee in the red zone gets rushed, makes an ill-advised decision, throws the interception, and that drive stalls, and the Eagles would take advantage. Taiwan Jones, the star running back for the Eagles. It's very hard to bring this guy down. He's showing you there, right, exactly why. Spinning out, cutting back, so difficult to bring him down. He keeps the drive going. Later on, Mitchell throws it over the middle. Nicholas Edwards gets crushed by Jordan Craney. It was a 15-yard penalty on the play. And later in the drive, it's back to Edwards from Mitchell. He gets it. Eastern Washington cuts the lead in half, 13-7. But toward the end of the second half, it's a fake field goal. Rick Haluska runs it in for the Cats. They go up 20-7 going into the locker room on a gutsy play call by head coach Rob Ash. Coming out of the locker room, Cats taking over right away. You know, Lorenzo Davis isn't that bad either, but compared to Taiwan Jones, he couldn't get overshadowed. But Davis there with a big run. And then later on, McGee looking down the right sideline. Tanner Bleskin there. Cornerback Jesse Hoffman was getting abused all day by the Cats. It would lead to this later in the drive. Cunningham, a short field goal, 23-7. No fake there. 23-7, the Cats on top. Eastern Washington, however, lost Taiwan Jones to injury early on in the second half, and the backups couldn't do much. Here, though, they are able to pick up a short 4th down and 1, as you see the chains getting it right there. But without Taiwan Jones in the game, very little offensive work for Eastern Washington because the drive would stall. Mitchell looking over the middle, can't find his man. Then later on, another pass knocked down with no Jones in the game, just so hard to move the football. And this doesn't help either. Another missed field goal, this one from 30 yards. It won't go. Eastern Washington just taking points off the board. And finally, just for the cherry on top, it's C.J. Palmer running it in on the left side. That makes it 30-7. That's how it would end. The first win in 8 years for the Cats over Eastern Washington. 30-7, the final. They're 1-0 in the Big Sky. Well, after watching those highlights, I can't imagine there's a happier man than the guy standing right next to me, head coach Rob Ash of the Montana State Bobcats. First off, Coach, your first win ever against Eastern Washington in your 4 years here. Sum it up for me.
It's a great day, AJ. It's a great day, and our players were awesome. In the lead up to this game, talking about how important the game was and how we had to really focus on doing the little things right to get a big step accomplished. And that's what I'm proud about, is we played, you know, you're always going to play with a lot of emotion in this game, but we played a smart game too. We played a solid game, fundamentally sound, did everything right, but still played hard at the same time. So we deserved to win, and it does feel good.
Just an emotional game. I could just see all the reactions coming off the field for all of you, just so excited, so pumped up to finally beat the Eagles. Yeah. And one reason why, Taiwan Jones, while he was healthy and in the game, you were able to limit him and limit his production. How were you able to do that?
Well, you know, we knew where he was. First of all, he's a great player. Make no mistake about it. He's always going to get his yards, and I hope he's not injured to where he's going to miss the rest of the season, because that would be unfortunate for our whole conference. He's a marquee player, you know, for the Big Sky Conference. But we knew where he was on every play. We really talked about being smart, not trying to go in and get a big hit on Taiwan Jones, but to try to surround him, you know, basically, and get cups on him and have inside out, outside in, good angles to the ball, and just gang tackling, getting a lot of people there. And I thought we did a good job of that. He made some great runs early on for 10 yards that a normal back would have made 2. So he did get some yards, but I'm proud of the fact we didn't let him get away for the big one.
Yeah, you can't really stop a guy like that, but as long as you contain him, that's all you can do, and it worked today. On the other side of the ball, Patchwork offensive line, especially after even a couple more guys went down today, or at least got banged up there. How were you guys able to limit Eastern Washington to 0 sacks in this game on Denarius McGee?
Well, first of all, that offensive line did a great job, AJ. I mean, those guys were a couple of first-time starters that had never played a down before. Andrew Verlanik and Sean Sampson. Alex Terrian playing out of position. Casey Dennehy, you know, has been a substitute, but he's played now 4 games. I mean, it was just, like you said, a patchwork group. Jesse Hoffman came in, played later, and I just think they did an awesome job. They played hard. I think that's the first thing they did. They knew the game plan, so they were always in the right spot. And Denarius McGee makes a lot of things easier for those linemen, too, because he's agile and mobile, and he gets away, and he makes, you know, he survives plays. And so when they did make a mistake, he was able to live to play another play, and so the combination worked out perfectly.
The play that I think a lot of people are going to be talking about after this game, Coach, the fake field goal toward the end of the first half. It's a gutsy call, especially when a field goal would put you up by 2 possessions at that point going into the locker room. When did you know you were going to fake in that situation? Was this a work in progress, or was this something that just came on the spur of the moment type of decision?
Well, no, we kind of, you know, all fakes are set up this way. You have an idea, then you confirm it when you do your first kick of the game. So we had a couple PATs to look at to see what the alignment was. And then you just have to have a gut feeling about when's the right time to call it. Coach Mack and I decided, you know, after we missed that extra point, we said to each other, well, you know, we could use the fake to get that extra point back. But then we both also said, well, we'd rather use the fake to get 6 instead of 3. So we were kind of filing it away for a field goal chance, and then it was close enough to to the end zone there that I thought we could, you know, knife in there and get the touchdown. So I really didn't hesitate. Once we got to the 4th down, 3 or 4 yards away, I thought, hey, this is a great chance to try it. Rick Haluska executed it perfectly, and it was a great call because it worked.
Because I was about to say after you explained it all to me that it was in hindsight 2020, it was a great decision after all that. Early on in the game, Coach, one of the things I noticed on the sideline, you guys went to Elvis Akpla a lot, starting off the game against Jesse Hoffman, one of the corners for Eastern Washington, and it seemed like you were having a lot of success with that matchup. Was that something that you wanted to exploit coming into this game?
Well, yeah, you know, you always look for matchups, and you know, Elvis is fast. He's a really good receiver that way, and you know, he hasn't had that breakout game where he's gone one-on-one against somebody and made big plays until today. And this was an important game for us. It's a statement that it's going to be tough for other teams to match up against us one-on-one. Eastern Washington has had success doing that against us for 3 years, and now with the thrower we have, the plan we have, and the receivers that we have, we can win some one-on-one matchups, and that's going to make it tough on people because in order to stop the run, it's nice to be able to play man-to-man on the outside. If you can't play man-to-man on the outside, it's tougher to stop the run. So now we're going to be able to have a complete offense, and that's what happened today.
And I know it's tough, Coach, but just before we go to break here, you try to sum up, you know, the meaning of beating Eastern Washington, starting 1-0 in the Big Sky. There's so much to think about. Try to sum it up if you can.
Well, AJ, we've been building a program here, and that's what I'm most proud about, and I'm most excited about at the same time. Is you have to keep seeing progress to build, and we've seen progress every year that I've been here. But this just means we've taken another step forward with the program, generally, big picture about what we're trying to do, and that's what I think this game means, and that's why it's so exciting.
And for 2010, it's a 1-0 start in the Big Sky.
Right.
And we will talk more about Sacramento State, next week's opponent, when we bring back Rob Ash. That'll be later in the show, but coming up next after this breaking first downs in this game, that actually is less to Eastern Washington. It was 23-19. The Eagles actually had the advantage there. But really where MSU came through was in the run defense. Taiwan Jones was held to only 68 yards on the ground. He did not score a touchdown, only averaged less than 5 yards a carry, which actually isn't too bad. But when we're talking about Taiwan Jones, it's certainly impressive. And Montana State able to hold him down. The Cats really able to get things going offensively as well. Denarius McGee threw for 283 yards and a touchdown. He did have an interception in the red zone, but overall McGee able to do his job. And on the ground again, Lorenzo Davis leading the team once again. 77 yards on the ground, but good balance also because the team was able to work C.J. Palmer in for 8 carries for 44 yards for himself. So certainly a good statistical game for the Cats, and it results in a 30-7 win over the Eagles of Eastern Washington. Now back here on the field with Bobcat game day analyst Mike Callahan, who's here to make sense of it all for us. And Mike, first of all, a heck of a win against a team that MSU hasn't beaten since 2002, a 23-point win. How do you explain it?
Well, I just think we were the better team today. I don't think there was that much of a mystery. MSU came out and really executed, with the exception of the interception in the end zone, really didn't make any serious mistakes. They kept the ball in front and defended a very, very good athlete in Taiwan Jones.
How were they able to stop Taiwan Jones while he was in the game before he got hurt?
Well, I don't think that you stop him so much as you slow him down, or I mean, he had several plays, 10 yards, and those are great plays, but for him, what you've got to stop is the 40-yarder, the 50-yarder. Kept him out of the end zone, and really, when you can do that, I think you've stopped him.
And really, on the offensive side of the football, it was a patchwork offensive line, and especially after even more injuries occurred in the game. How do you explain no sacks given up on Denarius McGee with this offensive line in place?
Well, I thought that was really the most impressive part of this game, is the way that MSU offensive line came together and really, as you say, patchwork, but didn't allow a sack, created some great holes in the run game. So I think really that's where the credit's got to go. To get games like this, you got to have some people step up, and they really did.
We'll get to next week in a second, but first of all, just reflecting on this one, how important is it to not only to beat Eastern Washington, which seemed to be a huge hurdle, but get off to a good start in the Big Sky?
Well, I think it's essential, because the Big Sky is so difficult this year. Eastern Washington is going to be one of the teams at the top of this pack as things sort of clear out as we move into the season. But getting off, you've got to hold serve at home. I think that's going to be essential this year if you want to win a Big Sky title. So doing that against a very good Eastern Washington team is just a fantastic start.
And the Cats hold serve at home, but next week they are on the road against Sacramento State, a team that got off to a good start in conference play, almost took Montana down, lost by a field goal in the end. Really quick, Mike, what do you see from Sacramento State going into this game?
Well, I think Sacramento State is going to be extremely challenging for Montana State, in that they had their first big victory at home, where they got over Boise State. They're going to be coming off a very tight loss in Missoula to a very good Montana team. They're going to be hungry to go out and avenge that loss and go, and they want to hold serve on their home field as well. So they'll need to step up big against MSU next week.
Should be interesting. First road game of the Big Sky for Montana State. Mike Callahan of Bobcat Game Day. When we come back, we are going to talk to Zach Minter, defensive lineman for the Cats, talk about his big interception return for a touchdown against Eastern Washington. So stick around. We'll be right back to the Bobcat Sports Report here now with defensive lineman Zach Minter, though. You can't really tell he's on defense anymore because of all the touchdowns he's scoring. That's 2 in 2 weeks now, Zach. Last week it was a fumble recovery. This time, an interception taken back to the house. How do you explain all these touchdowns you're scoring?
I really can't explain it. You know, you think about what kind of plays you're going to make and what kind of plays are going to come your way, and when they come and when those plays happen, you try to make the best of them.
And besides you scoring all these touchdowns, you guys were able to do a good job of containing Tywan Jones while he was not injured and in this game. How were you guys able to contain him so well during this game?
I think we prepared very well. Throughout the whole week, we were working on containing him, make sure we know where he's at all times. And during the game, we took care of assignments, and we got it done.
You held a team that was averaging over 41 points a game coming into this game to just a touchdown. How did you do it?
Again, we had really good assignments. We had players ready to take whatever comes at us, and when we take care of business and we do our assignments, and things will go really well.
And of course, this was the first win against Eastern Washington for the Cats since 2002. More importantly for this season, though, it's a win in the Big Sky opener. How important is it to get off to a good start in the conference?
Very important. You want to start out fast. You want to start out great. But you got to take it one game at a time. So we'll enjoy this one, but we'll move on to the next one.
And the next one, that would be Sacramento State. And that's going to be a road game on the road against a good team that put up a good fight against Montana before falling. What do you expect to see from the Hornets?
We expect to see some fast guys. You know, they're going to throw the ball, they're going to run the ball. We're going to watch some film, do our homework, and we'll see what they got for us.
And Zach, before we go, got to ask you about that touchdown again for that interception. Take us through it. Take us through the play, exactly what occurred that allowed you to get the pick and run it back.
Well, up front, there was a bunch of commotion up there. A lot of stuff was moving around. I guess someone got a hand on the ball. It ricocheted and it fell right into my hands, to be honest with you, and took off running, and I wasn't letting anyone catch me.
All right, Zach, thanks a lot. That's Zach Minter, defensive lineman for the Montana State Bobcats. And now moving to a different part of the defense, the linebackers, Alexei Grosolak. Here's a piece on him about his long journey from Billings Central to starting linebacker for. Welcome back to the Bobcat Sports Report. Rejoining me now, head coach Rob Ash of your Montana State Bobcats. MSU took a 37 win over Eastern Washington. Great emotional win and all, Coach, but just as quick as it came, it's gone, and now you have to focus on the next opponent. Try to calm the emotions down and move on to the second game of the season, or the second game of the conference season, which is the Sacramento State Hornets. Talk a little bit about them and what you know about them going into this week.
Well, they must have a pretty good team, AJ. I mean, I'm just looking at their scores. That's all I know so far. But they have a win over Weber State, and they've played tough in their other games. And then apparently they had a very close game against Montana today up in Missoula. So they've got a very good football team. Our assistant coaches started breaking them down early in the week, and I know that they ran the ball very effectively in the Weber State game. So they've been a good inside zone team. They don't do a lot of, magical things on offense. They're very sound, very simple, and they execute very well.
You know, and you never like to use the transitive property like this, but Eastern Washington beat Montana. Montana beat Sacramento State. So you can't assume that you guys have the edge over the Hornets or anything, but it is interesting to look at how the conference is shaking out here early in the first couple weeks.
I don't think we can tell anything about the conference yet, AJ. There's so many more things that have to happen. I mean, injuries can happen. You know, just look at Eastern Washington. You know, Tywan Jones has an injury. If he doesn't play next week or something, that's a whole different ballgame than, when he played earlier against Montana, for example. So those kind of things can crop up in the course of the season. But here's what I told our team. I said the locker room was raucous and excitable right after we won this game, and I kind of brought them down. I said, guys, how do you think Eastern Washington's locker room was last week right after they beat Montana? And then they got it. They knew where I was headed. And I said, this week, look what happened to them. They went on the road and they ran into a good team that knew they had a chance, and they got beat. So that's what we've got to do. Is we've got to celebrate tonight, but not too much. And we've got to make sure we respect Sacramento State. We've got to find out if we can win a game on the road. We've won 3 games all at home. So we got to find out if we can play on the road.
See, Coach, sometimes it's just a nice words of wisdom instead of shouting that might get the point across sometimes. Either way will work.
Yeah.
But I guess as you go forward now and you go to the road game, what is it going to take to come out and try to control the emotion? Because Eastern Washington, you don't like to say you had a letdown game after the Montana game, but it certainly wasn't. It didn't seem like the same team out there. You guys were able to shut them down. So what do you have to do to control the emotions going into this week?
Well, I think this group of guys that we have is going to be a team that's going to be fairly level. It's a team that has a lot of senior leadership. Guys like Mike Ryder and Mike Person, those guys are not going to let this football team, be erratic, come up and down and take anything for granted. They're hard workers. They get it, and I think they'll help this team focus. Every team has a different personality. Every team I've coached, some of my own teams have different personalities from year to year. And this team I really feel good about for being a team that's going to have the composure to be level each week.
Well, Coach, we're looking forward to it. We will see you next week in Sacramento. It should be a good one. Thanks, as always, for joining us here.
Thank you, AJ.
That's head football coach Rob Ash once again, and that is going to do it for us here on the Bobcat Sports Report. I'd like to thank head coach Rob Ash, Bobcat game day analyst Mike Callahan, and defensive lineman Zach Minter, all for taking the time to help us break it down. So until next week against Sacramento State, I'm AJ Donatoni for the Bobcat Sports Report. We'll see you next week.